All right, good morning. It is Monday. I'm out here before I go to work. We're gonna change the oil in the 2010 Corolla. It's got the 1.8 liter. So some of the tools I'm gonna be using today, obviously some shop rags. I got a 3/8 ratchet with a 14mm short well socket. Over here I have a universal oil filter wrench. I don't know if this is going to work for this car. This car does use a cartridge style filter. I don't have the correct size wrench to put on the cartridge housing. So we're going to try that. Hopefully we can get it done. Obviously I got an oil pan. I have a disposable funnel. It's just made out of paper. I picked it up at a local gas station for free. I have 5 quarts of 5W20. Full synthetic. That's high mileage. Project Farm, you can go to one of his videos. He does a lot of oil testing on his YouTube channel. He's compared the Supertech to, I think it was Amsoil, and it was very close. Not saying the Supertech's better than Amsoil in any way, but it did really good in comparison to a more expensive oil. Obviously you pick that up at Walmart. I believe the price was right around $17, $18. Don't quote me on that, I'm not really sure. I also have the Supertech ST10358 oil filter and a K&N PS7021 oil filter. Not sure which one I'm going to use yet. The Supertech is made in the USA. It says right on the box down in the right corner. It also has it printed on top of the filter itself. I have a jack, and I also have 2 jack stands. I said in one of my Chevelle videos that if I'm going under a car, I always use jack stands. Well, here they are. So let's go ahead and get started here. What I like to do first, I already did it, is I pull the dipstick and I wipe off any of the old oil. That way, when I put the dipstick in, there's not any old oil mixed in with the new stuff. You don't have to do that necessarily, but I like to do that. So let's go ahead and get set up under the car here, and we'll get started. So first, you obviously want to put your oil pan under the car. So your drain plug is right here. It's a 14 mil. So I got the 14 mil socket. So we'll pull this free, make sure, I guess my washer's gonna stay behind. I'll get that after the oil's drained. Try not to make a mess here. So this motor's cold. I pushed it down here. That way I didn't start the engine and have a bunch of oil up in the cylinder head or any other system. That way I get as much of the old oil out as possible. So we're gonna go ahead and let that drain for a few minutes until I'm getting just a drip out. And once that's done, we'll come back and we'll go ahead and pull the filter. So while we're waiting for that to drain, I'm gonna go ahead and pull off this engine cover. But first, I'm gonna go ahead and put my dipstick back in. I just don't want anything falling down the dipstick tube and getting into the motor, because as you can see, this thing is disgusting. So it should just pop off. So as you can see, people have been pouring oil all over the place in here. So I'm gonna go ahead and wipe this up with a rag before I actually pull it off. That way I don't get any of this crap down inside the engine to the best of my ability. So that should be good enough to pull that off without worrying about it. It's not too bad looking in there. There's no milky froth or anything. Down inside is actually really clean, which is quite interesting considering how the rest of the car looks. Let's go underneath and see what our situation is down here with the oil draining out. I don't know if you can see that, but it looks like we're getting to a drip. I like it to drip a little slower than that. So we'll just wait and we'll come back and I'll show you the rest of the procedure. Alright, so our drip has come to a consistency that I'm okay with. So I went ahead and wiped off the drain bolt, drain plug. So I'm going to go ahead and put it back in. I went ahead and left the washer up there. You're supposed to change them every time you do this. I don't. I'm not suggesting you don't, but that's just what I do. Typically they'll come off and you can inspect them and you can make your own decision from there. So I'm going to go ahead and snug that up. You don't need a lot of torque on these, but since I am reusing that, I put a little more on there than what was on there originally. Make sure you wipe off your oil pan and all that stuff, that way in the event you do get a leak, you can recognize that it's leaking versus is that residual or whatever. So now we're going to go ahead and pull the oil filter. Like I said, it is a cartridge style. It is right here. So let me go ahead and grab this tool and we'll see if we can get that off or not. So my friend actually gave me this. The way it was designed is there were springs that went across. Actually, there's just one spring that went across. Not sure if you can see that, from this hole to this hole. And that would keep this spring tension on this so it would clamp down. But actually when you loosen it, it actually requires it, if you spin it this way, it actually bites down on whatever it's grabbing. So again, make sure your oil pan's in place. Let's see if I can get this thing on here. So it's on there. I had this to tightening, put it back on loose. If I can get it up in here. I'm sure my hands are all in the way. There we go. You want to be careful not to damage this. Because if you do, you got to go buy a new one and your car is pretty much stuck wherever you have moved it to do the oil change. That should be loose enough to where we can get it by hand. As you can see, quite a bit of oil is going to come out of this. That's why you wanted to put your drain pan down. So that's our old filter. I'm not seeing any chunks or metal shavings or anything in it, so we should be good to go there. Something else I want to point out is there's a little tab here that's supposed to lock your filter in place. Usually you have to take a screwdriver, or it should be loose enough to where you can just bend it out of the way with your fingers. And what that does is it engages these notches here on the filter, that way it doesn't back off. I obviously didn't need to worry about that. Somebody in the past has bent this plenty, out of the way enough to where it didn't even contact the filter. So you'll want to clean the inside of this up, your filter housing. So I'll go ahead and go do that. You can use whatever you like. I normally don't use any kind of chemical. I just wipe it out with a rag. make sure there's no, you know, debris left inside there. So I'm gonna go take care of that, and then we'll come back and put the new filter in. So I got the inside of that cleaned out pretty good. I ended up using this blue shop rag. You can buy these at pretty much any auto store, I think Walmart as well. They're pretty expensive, so I try to use them sparingly. They don't leave behind a lot of lint or dust, so when I'm doing oil changes, I like to use these to go ahead and clean up, you know, important stuff that doesn't need to get a bunch of lint on it. You don't want that stuff running around inside your engine. So what I'm doing now is I'm just in here cleaning up this filter housing. Just you know, that way get all as much of that old oil out as possible. I'm also gonna go ahead and clean up all this stuff around it since it's nasty. Try not to get any of that grit and debris down inside that housing. So now that we got that wiped out, what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and compare these filters. I'm gonna compare the K&N at first to whatever was in here. I don't know what was in here before. So that's your K&N, and that's whatever was in here before. They're obviously pretty much the same. I don't know. Let's see if I can find out who made this. Yeah, there's no markings on it. But this is the K&N. It's actually made in Korea, not the United States. So I'm gonna go ahead and compare it to the Supertech, and we'll decide which one to run from there. Alright, so the Supertech has this plastic housing around it, which I'm not particularly fond of. That seems to waste filter media surface area. So I'm going to go ahead and put the Supertech back. I'm not saying you'd have issues running this. It is a lot cheaper than the K&N. The K&N I think was like $8, $9 at Walmart, and then this Supertech was I think $3. So it's up to you what you want to run, but we'll go ahead and get this. What you do is you just slide this in the housing like that, and then also in the box should be a new O-ring. So I like to take a dab of the old oil and put this on the O-ring. That way it's not dry going in. I already removed the old one here when I cleaned it up, but you just want to slide this over. You don't want to stretch it like a rubber band. You just kind of want to roll it down. If you stretch it too much, it won't seal very well, or you might end up cutting it, putting it back in. So your O-ring goes in this top groove here, not on this bottom one. So now that we got that all reassembled, I'm going to go ahead and screw this back in. I don't know how I'm going to torque this with that wrench, but I might not need it. It's going in pretty well by hand. Push that out of the way. I don't know if this thing's going to work for tightening the filter up. I highly doubt that. Yeah, all it wants to do is spread apart. So I do not advise doing this, but I'm going to use these channel locks, these big gnarly ones here. I'm not going to bite too much into this plastic housing because I don't want to damage it, obviously, provided I can get on it. Yeah, I can't even get on that. So I'm going to figure out how I'm going to torque this down the rest of the way, and I'll come back. Alright, so I ended up finding some smaller channel locks, and they're working pretty good. Like I said, you want to be careful not to damage this housing. For future oil changes, I will be buying the correct adapter because I don't like doing this type of stuff. This seems to be working pretty good. Let's see if I can get a little more on that. Oh yeah. Alright. That there is snug. So that is where the filter housing started originally. So I'm pretty confident that that's torqued down good enough. If I get any leaks, I'll let you guys know, but I'm not too worried about it. So after that, I'm gonna go ahead and drop the car back off the jack stands to level the car out, and then we'll start filling it up with oil. All right, we got our car down off the jack stands. So we're gonna go ahead and put the oil in. I'm gonna clean up the cap. I don't want any of this stuff down inside the motor. I'll just set that up there. Like I said before, I'll go ahead and pull the dipstick, wipe it off. Again, you don't have to do that, but I like getting as much of the old oil out as possible. So I'm also going to go ahead and clean up the oil fill hole, being sure to wipe away from the hole. That way none of this stuff falls down inside the engine. There is a little bit of gritty stuff on top here, so I just wanted to clean that up, make sure none of that goes down on the side of the motor. So take your funnel. I'm going to use this paper one. I do have plastic ones. I like these paper ones because when you're done with them, you can just throw them away. So I believe with filter, this engine takes 4.4 quarts. So I'm going to go ahead and put as close to that in it as possible. This is a 5-quart jug. So let's get started here. Now, of course, my paper filter moved around a lot and I made a mess, but that's all right, I'll clean it up. The wind's not helping at all. I'll try to hold that now that I can one-hand this. So once you get towards the bottom, keep checking. I'm at about 1 3/4 quarts left. So I'll just do a few splashes. I'm down at about 1 quart. So we'll try that there. And with that there, I'm probably around 2/3 of a quart. So that should be good to start it. Let it run for a little bit, and we'll see where our oil level is at after that. But I'm first going to clean up my mess here. In future videos, we will show me cleaning up all this stuff. This stuff's pretty nasty. As you can see, that stuff's brittle. It just exploded on me. So we'll probably put some new loom on this stuff. They're ground wires, so they don't need them too horribly bad. But I got that cleaned up pretty decent. So we'll go ahead and start the car and let it warm up, and then we'll let the oil settle and we'll check the oil level again. All right, now that I found the key, we're gonna go ahead and start this up. Now on initial startup, you might get a little lifter tick until oil gets into the filter housing, fills up the system, and it should go away after a few seconds. Surprisingly got absolutely none, which is good. Oh, I probably should have went ahead and put my dipstick back in. So we'll put that back in. Like I said, we'll let that warm up and we'll check the oil level. So what I do, I start it, let it warm up, and then I'll shut it off, let it sit for 5 minutes, let all the oil run back to the pan as much as possible, and then I'll check the dipstick again. So I'll go ahead and let that happen, and I'll come back and show you guys what I find. Alright guys, it's been about 5 minutes since I shut the car off, let it warm up. So I just wanted to correct myself here earlier. The K&N oil filter, I found my receipt from Walmart. The K&N oil filter for this car was $5.72 from Walmart. The Walmart or Supertech brand was $2.97. And then the motor oil itself, all 5 quarts, was actually $14.88. I don't know if that was on sale or not, but pretty good deal. So I just wanted to correct myself on that, let you guys know what the actual price was. So now that we're into 5 minutes, let's go ahead and check our dipstick. You always pull it, wipe it off first, reinsert it, and then pull it. As you can see, we are just below the top dot, so we're in serviceable range. I'm not going to top that off. My driveway does lean a little bit, so once I get to like an actual flat surface, I'll go ahead and check it there, you know, say at the gas station when I'm putting gas in it or whatever. But that should be good. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to take you guys underneath, see if we have any oil leaks. I don't see anything dripping off the pan, and I don't see anything coming off that filter housing. Sometimes I'll run my finger along the bottom. It was dry. Same with around the filter or the drain plug. Everything's dry. So that's it, guys. That's an oil change on a 2010 Toyota Corolla with the 1.8 dual overhead cam engine. Pretty simple. I guess I should go ahead and show you guys how to reset the maintenance light. So as you can see, we have the maintenance required light on. Even when I start it, it actually stays on. So the way you reset this is, let me see if I can set you guys up here. I'll just try to do it one-handed, maybe. So the way you reset this is you shut the car off. It has to be on trip A. So what you do, you shut the car off on trip A, you push in the trip reset, and then you turn the key. And what you'll see is you'll get those flashing dashes, and once they clear, it'll go to 0 and your light will go out. So we'll start it and our light will go out. And what that is that's your oil reset, or not reset, it's your oil change indicator. So after a certain amount of miles, based on how you drive the car, you know, it could be 5,000, it could be 4,800, it could be whatever. I believe all that stuff's built into the ECU based on parameters of, you know, how fast you're driving the car, how long you drive the car, stuff like that. Again, I'm not really certain when it comes on. It just depends on your driving style, stuff like that. But as you can see, the light's out. So we're gonna go ahead and wrap it here. That's how you do an oil change and oil reset, or oil indication reset, maintenance required light reset. on a 2010 Toyota Corolla. I appreciate you guys tuning in. Be sure to like, comment, subscribe, and we'll see you guys next time. Bye.